nonprofit organization in the municipality of Kincardine, and Crystal Murphy is a member and an enthusiastic advocate for trees. And she's here to show what's happening with her group. So Crystal, you want to take it away?
Hi, yeah, thanks, Joe. I can do that. First, I'd like to say thank you to the Climate Action Team for hosting this meeting all about trees. It's good timing as we're ramping up for all of our spring projects. So the Penetangro Watershed Group is mainly based out of the Penetangro Watershed, which is in Kincardine, part of Bruce County. We're made up of volunteers and landowners and the Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority. I'm sure a lot of you know Joanne. She's been a huge help over the years. We started tree planting in 2011, so I didn't realize until I threw this together for tonight, but this is actually, we're looking at 10 years of tree planting in this area, which is pretty exciting. My page. Okay, so the Penetangro watershed is fairly large, and there are a few forks that trickle down into Lake Huron. Our group goals are to increase the number of trees in our watershed and also the diversity of native plants, to improve our water quality by increasing stream buffer planting, and also to engage our community by involving youth and residents of all ages. That's my favorite part, is the community engagement and seeing people out doing hands-on projects, planting trees. So other than last year due to COVID, every year we take students out to tree plant, volunteers from the high school, or this was the robotics team here in Kincardine, will go out and plant 1,000 trees during the day. We also do a tree handout day. That'll be happening in 2021. So if you know any landowners in Kincardine that are looking for up to 200 trees to plant themselves on their property, we do that every April or May, depending on the weather. And there's a native shade trees that are planted each spring, a tall tree sale in May that should be happening this year as well, and a storm pond revitalization project that we'll get to. So since 2011, we've taken 600 students tree planting over 8 years and planted 8,000 trees. The feedback we get from teachers and students is really fantastic. Teachers have followed up with me months later saying that their students came to them to let them know that that was their favorite day all year. I mean, they are, except for the one year that it snowed and was raining, but it's really great to see students out there tree planting and how inspiring it is for them. And there we go. Another program that I mentioned is that we hand out trees to landowners. So we'll advertise in the spring that we have a few thousand trees to give away. And since 2011, we've handed out 17,000 trees. The ownership is on the landowner to plant them and then send us a picture of where they're at if requested. So it's been really popular for people with farms in our area to plant windbreaks or rows along the stream to prevent erosion. This past year, my son and I took 200 and we went and planted them along a river in a park near our house. We've also had a successful shade tree program that, waiting on a grant application announcement, will run again in 2021. So the Penetangro Watershed Group gets a grant, and the municipality of Kincardine matches it. So for 5 years, they've been able to take that money and plant shade trees in public spaces. Our forest here in this area is an aging forest, so it's really important to add new trees to it, especially in areas where kids play at playgrounds and people are walking along the streets. Also, since 2016, we've been offering a tall tree sale through the Penetangro Watershed Group and the municipality of Kincardine. This was actually, Victoria came up with this through Saw Green years ago, and she brought it to Kincardine. It's been really successful the last 4 years. So Bruce Power donates money, the municipality matches it, and residents are able to get quite a large tree at a reasonable price. I will tell you, if you want to plant it by yourself, get help. I did injure myself one year trying to plant a tree in our backyard. It looks great. It looks great after the physiotherapy. All worked out. And then if you've ever driven by Kincardine in front of the Tim Hortons and Sobeys area and seen a revitalization project sign, this was a project that started in 2011. There was a detention basin and the main intersection that was often flooded with water, and it was just invasive species and grass. So we were lucky enough to get grant money from various organizations to plant native plants in that area. So we had students, the mayor, council members, residents out planting native plants with wood chips and tarps down to kill the grass. Many nights after supper, if it was windy, we would run out to see if the tarps were still down, killing it, so we could plant the next week. But it's been very successful since it was planted in 2011. It's become, I need a more modern picture, but the plants have really taken hold. So it's full of native plants, and monarch butterflies have been spotted. There are red-winged blackbird nests and all kinds of native species growing there. It looks more like a marsh or a wetland than a grass field. A big part of the Penantengo Watershed Group is our community engagement. So every year we take students, but also anyone interested in tree planting on a tree planting night. So if anyone's interested, please let me know. I'm always running out the door at 6 o'clock on a Wednesday in May with 10 shovels and 1,000 trees, and my fingers crossed that people will show up. So sometimes it's a few, and the last few times it was lots. So everyone's welcome. We've had a few successful cattle exclusion fencing projects with the help of bigger organizations like Bruce Power and Saugeen Valley to have cattle fenced off from the river. This one in particular was also in coordination with the Pine River Watershed Group. It's always good to work with your neighboring tree planting organizations. We collaborate with lots of organizations and groups. I feel like that's really important for everyone to work together to make projects successful. And I always need to say thank you to all our grant supporters. And finally, if anyone wants to help volunteer, we're a small but mighty group of 4. And we're always looking for landowners that are interested in having either a small area or acreage planted in trees. And you're more than welcome to contact us, and we can choose the right path forward. That's it. Does anyone have any questions?
That's amazing. Thank you, Crystal. That's a lot going on in a small space of the small part of the world.
Yeah.
We did have a couple of questions, so I'll just say them. Arlene asks if Phragmites are an issue for you.
Phragmites are an issue in the municipality of Kincardine. Most of our tree plants are upstream. So as far as tree planting the watershed, we have a top-down approach where we were trying to plant at the top of the watershed. And a lot of the Phragmites are along the shoreline. So it hasn't interfered with us in particular.
Nancy wants to know, where do you source your trees?
We buy trees from Saugeen Valley and also Everest. And the Storm Pond Rehabilitation Project, we had multiple native plant growers, including Janice McKean at the ARC. And the other one, I can't remember. I know I drove quite far, about an hour inland with a pickup truck, but I can't remember the name of it.
Another question, where did you apply for your grants?
We've been lucky to get grants from Bruce Power, OPG, Enbridge. We got a Canon grant once through Food Share, and the municipality often matches some of our grants if the tree planting is on their property.
Nice. Our next question is about edible plants, but we've actually got a speaker who's going to talk about edible plants later on. So we'll hold that. And there's a couple more. Do you use, what's your relationship with the Conservation Authority? Should all the areas have these sub-watershed groups?
We were lucky. So in 2010, I was a member of the Kincardine Environment Committee, and another woman there and I started talking about wanting to focus on tree planting and started this group. And she was really good at knocking on doors. We knocked on doors of farms and resident houses, and she went and knocked on the Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority's door, and that opened all the resources that they have available, and they've been helping our group organize for 10 years.
Nice. The last question is logistics. Do you use Excel for managing volunteers? Do you use something more sophisticated than that?
Managing volunteers is just email and fingers crossed.
I'll pass it back to Joaquin. We're going to bounce around from Kincardine to somewhere else in Grey Bruce. Thanks, Crystal, very much.
Thanks.
And we may have a question later on. Feel free to stick around.
Okay, thanks.
Fingers crossed sounds like Excel. So our next speaker will be Bob Gray.
Thanks, you're welcome. Yes, I don't belong to a particular organization related to planting trees. I'm just a landowner. I'm a member of the Ontario Maple Syrup Producers Association, and I've been interested in maple trees for a long time. We're up in Keppel Township, just north of the village of Kemble on the Niagara Escarpment. A little while ago, I came across an article that had been written about this program called Maple Leaves Forever, and I thought you might be interested in this if you haven't already heard of it. Have you ever noticed when you're driving down the country roads, they're lined with big old hardwood trees about 40 feet apart? And it's as long ago, farmers and landowners were following a landscaping style guide. And there was a particular program available. Back in 1883, the Ontario Tree Planting Act gave landowners 25 cents per tree that was still alive 3 years after planting. So these trees were, basically dug out of nearby woodlots and plunked out by the roadside. And the subsidy was paid 50% by the province and 50% by the municipality. And apparently that program was going for about 9 years. They planted 75,000 trees, which sounds like a lot of trees, but it's really not a lot of trees. But a lot of these, these big old trees are starting to fall apart now. They've been out there growing for about 130 years, and they're starting to come down. The idea behind planting them was for them to serve as wind and snow breaks. And most of them were native maples. This particular organization, Maple Leaves Forever, they're really keen on planting native species of maple trees. They prefer sugar maples, but they also support the planting of red maples and silver maples, but they're all native. Just depends on the type of ground that's there. This program by the Maple Leaves Forever started in 1977, and by 1997, sorry, and by the end of 2019, they have financially planted this. They financially supported the planting of almost 128,000 native Canadian maples, which is estimated to equal more than 730 miles of Ontario roads that are lined with maple trees. So it's kind of a neat thing. As you know, the sugar maple is kind of a Canadian emblem. The maple leaf is on our flag. It has a lot of nice benefits. It grows in this part of the world. It's kind of one of our premier tree species. And anyways, the idea behind this particular program is if you're a landowner and you'd like to have help financial help with planting these trees. The Maple Leaves Forever Foundation lines up with a number of nurseries across Ontario, and they will provide a 25% donation towards the cost of purchasing those trees for planting. And these, I think, are fairly large trees that go into the ground. I don't know exactly how big they are, but they probably have a root ball, and I'm assuming that maybe these trees might be, I don't know, $150 a piece or something like that. Maybe they're 4 or 5 feet high. But they will provide 25% of the cost of that tree. And you're eligible for 10 to 50 trees on your property per year through this program. So far, they have donated $2 million towards this program. And what's remarkable about it is that it's all come out of one individual's pocket. That's his donation. He's giving back to the people of Ontario. His name is Ken Jewett. I think he's 92 years of age. I think these big old maple trees provide a lot of habitat for different species. They really make things look beautiful. They've got beautiful fall colors on them, and it's just part of our rural landscape that we have here in this part of Ontario that is probably not in existence in other parts of the province where it's more developed, and it gives it much more rural approach or a rural look to the community. It just really looks pretty. And at the same time, you're sequestering carbon by planting these trees. But it would just, it's just an idea. It's just another thought for tree planting. And I know tonight that there's a lot of different organizations and individuals talking about tree planting. But, if you're into planting trees to sequester carbon, to try to cut down on our carbon footprints, maybe this isn't the most efficient way to go, but it's another way to go. So, if you can get enough people together, working together, I think some good things can happen. So it was just an interesting program, and it's still going, but it's Maple Leaves Forever. And from that, you could develop your own program, or if anybody would like to just spend some money and get larger trees in the ground right away, you could go that route too. But I'm not saying that planting trees is easy, and anybody that's planted trees knows that it's not. I remember as a university student, I used to plant 1,000 trees a day up in the cutovers in Northern Ontario. And when I retired, I had a mechanical tree planting outfit, and I could do 5,000 trees a day. But it's not easy. But, if you're trying to get trees in the ground, there's different ways of doing it. But this is just another program that's out there for you. So that's all I have.
So the next one is Fulfilling the Dream, a new tree project. And Nancy Brown from the English Falls Arboretum is going to talk about that. So Nancy, it's your turn. Is Nancy there?
Yes, thank you.
Oh, hi, Nancy.
Hello, here I am. Yes, so I'm Nancy Brown from representing the Ingles Falls Arboretum Alliance. And our Arboretum Alliance is a volunteer committee of the Grey Sauble Conservation Authority. So today I'd like to share with you some information and an invitation to participate in a project which we're undertaking in 2021. And we're able to do this through gratefully accepted donation or grant from the Toronto Dominion Friends of the Environment Foundation, the TDFEF. And we call the project, as Jochen mentioned, Fulfilling the Dream. So I'm certain there's at least a couple of you on this call who have to admit that you didn't even know that there was an arboretum associated with Owen Sound and the Grey Sauble Conservation Authority. But don't be embarrassed, because it's one of those best kept secrets. This year, we want to do two things. Number one, we want to finish collecting the trees that we haven't been able to yet find or source. So we have 100 out of 174 on our native tree species list. We have those represented, but we'd like to acquire the other species, probably through purchasing them through native nurseries. And then we'll also be inviting the public out to plant with us, one session in the spring and probably a session in the fall. And so this is the part where we'd love it if groups could, you know, we'll be asking for groups to step forward and help us to plant these special specimens. And the second part is we want to label all the species of woody plants in the entire arboretum, both the trees of the world and the native trees, because we want to, you know, we want to be recognized as an arboretum. We want to be recognizable as an arboretum. People just see it as, you know, a bunch of trees. We've never had really efficient or professional labeling done. We have little pieces of paper that are laminated, and we have those as a very temporary measure on many of the specimens at this time. So this is what we want to do, and it's been made possible through the grant from the TD-FEF Foundation, and it's just amazing the way the Grace Sobel, the TD-FEF, and the Ingalls Falls Arboretum, we all share a similar mandate. We all share the desire to educate and to promote the planting of native plants. And we're so happy and proud to be able to assist in this, providing a place where people can go and not only you know, just see it on a screen or in a book, but go out and see the trees and shrubs and smell them and touch them and sit and walk and just to really feel what it's like out in nature. You see, it seems that in southwestern Ontario, like just in, say, the last 2 generations, we've gone from the point where the vast majority of children and families were raised in rural settings to now where the vast majority are raised in urban settings. And so we really want to promote, you know, one other thing, in the old days, like, kids, they learn that that's a sugar maple. Those are the ones you get the maple sap from, the syrup from, and this is a softwood maple, you know, and they learned about the names and the species of trees, and they knew about wood. They knew where wood came from. They knew where, you know, berries that they could eat came from, and the food for the birds and pollinators, and they learned a lot of this from their families. And now it seems that people, they need to actually get in their cars and go someplace to be able to experience nature and to experience what we maybe took for granted previously.
Betty's asking on native trees, do you germinate them and size them up, these native trees, from local seed sources, or are the saplings purchased from nurseries?
Yeah, so that's the role of our nursery. We germinate them ourselves. We start the seedlings there. We start the seeds. We germinate as many as we can. We just have had the whole nursery setting for 15 years, and of course we're learning as we go. So we're just, you know, starting, but it's been great. It's a wonderful source of seedlings for people, and we sell them on Saturday mornings. Just to put a little plug in there.
Well, you must be so proud. There's one more question. Have you ever thought about using barcodes or cell phone scanners? It looks like technology integration into these trees, in the front of the trees, the labels.
Yeah, we thought of that, the QR codes, but it seems, and maybe most of us, we talk to the youth about that, or the young people, and they don't even have QR code scanners on their phones anymore. It's already a thing of the past. So we want to have the visible. I know that's in itself is a little bit antiquated, having the actual names on signs, but we feel it's important to, and we'll have more than just the names. We'll have little tidbits of information about the trees on the signs as well. And sometime we'll probably have more of a talking tour or something that would be in some way automated as well.
Yeah, it's wonderful. I'm almost daily there, or at least 4 times a week, either hiking through or skiing through when I can. That's very nice to hear the background of this arboretum. Yeah, the next one is Betty Muse with Blue Mountains Tree Trust. Welcome to our meeting tonight. So Betty, take it away.
Thank you. It's Betty Muse from Town of Blue Mountains Tree Trust. Okay, so it's Tree Trust Town of the Blue Mountains, and it's a program that started from the Elora Environment Center. And right now there's communities, I guess partner communities or partner franchise sort of, we're able to operate under the Tree Trust umbrella. And the Elora Environment Center is a registered charity, and they've have another program called Neighborwoods. They've also been doing energy audits and things like that since '93. So very, very active in the energy conservation, climate change space, as well as trees. And the way it works is they operate online donations that are allocated to the program. So we're able to operate under their umbrella and under their website. We receive donations from citizens and community members. And then when we have enough funds, we hire certified arborists, tree trust arborists, to work on the trees, to work on a particular tree. And then 2 native trees are planted to sort of eventually take over. So you can see the spirit of the program is very much to look after these, we're calling them carbon heroes. They're those big sugar maples that Bob mentioned, you know, those kinds of trees that are landmark trees established in the community. Everybody knows about them. They're very special. The arborists make an assessment as to the vitality to make sure that the work that they're going to be doing will in fact extend the life, or as our arborist likes to say, allow the tree to fulfill its genetic potential. And so an illustration of that is this tree here, the 3rd slide. That was our first tree that we launched this summer. And it was at the corner of 10th Line and the Georgian Trail in Thornbury, and a little bit just outside of the town of Thornbury. And it was a beautiful tree. The arborist estimates that it's more than 200 years old, but it had some issues in the interior of the canopy. And so they were able to go in, you'll see from this slide here, they were able to go into the canopy and work on sort of reducing some of the density, doing their high-tech professional stuff on the tree. And they feel very optimistic that they're going to be able to really preserve the length of the longevity of this tree. And this was the opening. This was Mayor Sover, the mayor of the town of Blue Mountains. And we presented him with a t-shirt. He also unveiled a plaque. The town of Blue Mountains was able to provide funding. You'll see over here, the plaque has been placed on a granite boulder that just happened to be in the canopy, under the canopy of this beautiful tree. And here's some of the people that showed up. This slide here is our 2nd tree. And it was out at the Banks Heritage Cemetery. It's another sugar maple, and I didn't realize that there are these incredible heritage cemeteries. And this is them working on that tree. It had some issues in the center area. They think there was an animal living in there, but again, their assessment was that their arboreal work will extend the life. And a wonderful, wonderful gentleman that lived in the area came up to me and thanked me, practically had tears in his eyes. He remembers when there were 2 sugar maples at the opening of the Heritage Cemetery. Now there's just the 1. And he remembers when there was a church there and it's come down. So he was so grateful that this had been able to be preserved. And this is another picture of them doing the work. They're way up in the upper areas of the canopy, reducing the density in some cases. And it was an incredibly windy day, but they were brave and making it happen. This slide here is some of the local media we've been able to get, which has been fantastic. And it also is a reminder for me to mention how much community support we've gotten. People, maybe it's COVID, but people have really responded to the program. They like the idea that this tree trust program is helping to preserve viable, beautiful trees that are already established in our community, and the idea that we're going to plant 2 babies to continue that beautiful presence in our community. And in terms of our plan, we'd like to continue fundraising, and we'd like to be a practical mechanism for community members to basically express their love of trees through the preservation and care of these important trees. And our 3-year goal is to become a bit of a go-to organization for that kind of a function. What we'd like to be able to do in the next little while is we have number 1 activity is our conservation tree care. And that's our main focus and mandate. Number 2 is we actually submitted some funding to establish a native, local native tree nursery. And that's why I was very interested, Nancy, in the Inglis Falls. And I'd spoken recently to Mike Fry and talked to a few friends down in the Wellington County area about nursery. Our job or our role isn't to establish separate infrastructure, but rather just to see if we can actually create sources of native, locally sourced tree saplings to plant out in our community. So whether that means we work with other partners or whether we create other mechanisms to do that. The Wellington people told me about how they get school-age kids with cell packs, and it's their grade 3 project to germinate these trees. And then, you know, they move up the grades in terms of sizing them up and things like that. So we're still in the idea stage. We just got a teeny little bit of money to pay for some expertise. We don't know if it's going to establish itself as infrastructure because we might just end up partnering or leveraging other assets. The third area is there's been some talk of establishing an arboretum, or what we've been calling internally functionally forest fragments, or something along the lines that we're preserving areas of natural canopy with certain features. There was some interest in maybe having an arboretum that focused on heritage apple varieties. This is very, very early innings, and we would love it if the town took the leadership on this. It's just myself. I love to see that this idea, you know, becomes manifest in other projects. So that's something we're supporting and driving. And then also would like to support and drive expanded, significant tree planting efforts in the town, which is really not the case right now. It needs a lot of muscle and a lot of dedication. So I recently went to the town of the Blue Mountains and made a deputation. There was a motion passed for the staff to comment on all of those 4 areas, in addition to a 5th area related to a tree cutting bylaw, which the town started, but since COVID has really stopped and it's kind of languished. So I'm hopeful that Tree Trust can follow its mandate, which is to support the preservation of landmark beautiful trees, maybe start to develop a mechanism to cultivate native saplings, and then leverage and support and amplify the work of other people in the community related to an arboretum, related to tree planting, and related to the bylaw. So that's what we're up to, and it's busy, but it's exciting, and I'm so happy to be a part of this and learn about what other organizations are doing. So thank you very much. I hope that was 5 minutes.
Thank you, Betty. There are a lot of people watching right now, so it's actually really great to connect with everybody around. And it sounds like if you're going for a tree planting program, you've got a few people to choose from. There were no questions specific, or there was one, but it looks like it's been answered. Yeah, you're welcome. Where are we going next?
Well, just a comment. I think it is so great that a focus on the health of trees, because often I think it's kind of black and white. Either the tree lives or it's dead or sick and being cut down. So to change that narrative, I think is really, really important. And I think it changes our minds around trees a lot.
And it sounds like it's a really fun program. Just focusing on one tree is really different.
Yeah, one tree at a time.
Yeah, we hope to do about 5 this. we hope to do 5 this year, but also the carbon capture, I mean, these are carbon heroes. They're already holding this carbon, and we don't want to cut it down or burn it down and liberate it. So, and they continue to sequester carbon. There's so much mass in them. So they are a little bit overlooked, but I think they're very symbolic for people.
Okay, thanks very much, Betty. Now, Gray Sawbill Conservation Authority. Conservation authorities were quite a lot in the news a little while ago. And today, Mike Fry will talk about Gray Sawbill Conservation Authority and trees. Welcome, Mike.
Perfect. Thanks for having me. Yeah, so I'm the forestry coordinator at Gray Sawbill. And so I guess kind of touch on a couple of things we do. So we sell trees through our over-the-counter programs, and so these are seedlings 12 to 18 inches in size, and then we also do have some larger stock, the ball and burlap or the potted stock, as well as some larger bare root 5 or 6 foot tall maple, oaks, and then some fruit trees in there as well. So some really good variety of trees there, and kind of species that will cover no matter what your property has. If it's wet, if it's dry, we kind of got something for you, which is kind of nice. And so those forms, they're available on our website. And I think Saugeen Valley, we work rather closely with them. So I'm not trying to steal from Donna's talk here, but you can kind of check out our website. It's graysawbill.on.ca. And then the forms are due the March 26th. And then usually we kind of have a tree sale day or a morning. We couldn't do it last year because of COVID. It's still up in the air, I guess, if we're going to run it this year. We can't, based on the numbers we usually have and how people are fairly close, we're working out how to run it. But kind of keep pay attention for that. We'll put out some media on that if it's going to happen or not. So the other thing we're doing, so it's a tree planting program. So every year for probably the last 25 years, we've been planting trees all throughout our watershed. I think we're up over 4 million now historically, so it's fantastic. This is mainly seedlings, and so it's mainly the conifers to get those forests established and then have it converted into a mixed forest. We've been very fortunate to secure really high quality stock, and then also be able to leverage multiple grants. So our grants right now are covering anywhere between 70 and 100% of the project costs. So we do have some landowners who are getting a couple thousand trees and it's costing them $0. So it just kind of, it depends on the project, but it's a great way for us to increase our forest cover, increase our riparian cover, improve water quality, create habitat, and then also maintain the forest that we do have. And so this year what do we have here? So we have around 35 projects for between 85 and 90,000 trees. So it's a fair amount, and it should create a lot of new forests going forward. So that's fantastic for us. Yeah, and so I guess kind of our funders, we do try and keep our costs as low as we can, but we do look to outside sources. So this year we're getting some funds from Force Ontario, which is quasi ENGO, I guess. The federal government, we've been able to tap into a couple of grants programs there. We've actually reached out to a charity out of the US, I think it's out of Vermont, who have been getting a lot of donations and want to pass it on to people in Ontario. So we've connected with them and they've been really helpful. And then we've also been getting private citizens who don't own property themselves, but either want to reduce their carbon footprint or want to see more forest in the area. So they've kind of reached out to us to say, how can we work together on this? So, and then I guess this is the last point that I have. So as I said about our funding, we have funding for tree planting programs, and we've also got into working with agricultural communities, So for cover crops to reduce erosion, cattle exclusion fencing, once again to reduce erosion, and then also water diversion projects from farms. So those are the kind of ones we're looking at and trying to expand on, and just trying to get into different communities to see how we can work with the groups.
That's amazing to hear that it doesn't look like there's any slowdown in tree planting efforts despite any legislation that's come through. We have a question. Oh, don't go ahead if you want.
No, just not yet. You know, we're trying to stick handle the provincial legislation that's coming, and we'll just keep going as best we can.
There was a question about ash. Is there any programming designed to replace the loss of the ash trees in our watersheds? From the ash borer, I assume. Anything specific?
I mean, we're definitely stopped planting ash, and we're looking at restoring some of those forests. I can't think of anything off the top of my head. I'm not sure if Donna Lacey's on the call, if she can think of it, if she knows, but.
Okay, I think we'll go to Donna probably soon. But first, there's a couple more questions. What do you recommend to plant in regenerating farmers' fields, where the ash is the predominant sapling because the ash borers moved in?
So for a lot of the funding we get, it's afforestation, so it's not planting underneath forest, it's where there's no forest. And then most of the time when we're planting, we do go mainly with conifers, like 80-90% conifers, with the remaining hardwoods. We found in the past, if we go with too much hardwood, then it's just deer browse, unfortunately. So unfortunately, you know, people kind of lose interest when they see that. So best success for us is kind of conifer based. So pine, spruce.
All right. Looks like one more. Do you make any specific efforts towards forest continuity, like contiguous forest?
Yep. So we've started reaching out to landowners, kind of targeting certain people to say, you know, if you plant this 1 acre area, in the future it'll connect up to forest. So we're looking at doing that, and then also to target riparian forest cover. So we're trying to increase that habitat connectivity, because we do understand it's extremely important.
Nice. Thank you, Michael. We're cruising through right on schedule. I appreciate your time and how succinct you made that sound, because there's a lot going on. You're welcome. The floor is yours.
Yeah, again, thanks, Michael. And it's interesting that the Conservation Authority's tree planting is kind of behind the scenes. We don't even notice it, but the trees are going up, which is really fantastic. Okay, the next one and the last speaker is Donna Lacey from Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority. So welcome here, Donna.
Oh, I just wanted to interrupt, and there are one or two more. Sorry, Joachim. We'll go to someone after Donna.
Oh, really? I'll let you introduce the next ones.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. It's really great to have everyone gather together to talk about trees, and any chance I get to talk about trees, I take it. So thank you very much. You're in for a good half-hour presentation. Okay, just kidding. Mike pretty much said it all for both of our conservation authorities. I think he did a great job of presenting what our tree planting programs are all about and kind of what we're all about. Saugeen's been planting trees for almost 60 years. We've got over 5.5 million trees in the ground in our time. I'm not that old. I've been planting for almost 30 years myself, and I'm pretty proud to see some of the trees that I've planted be really, really large. You know, when you're successful at tree planting, you sometimes run out of areas to plant, and I'm hoping that's why our numbers are so much lower than Gray Sauble's, because we're hoping to reach 30,000 trees for this spring, which is an incredibly low number for us. We like more like 200,000. So we're still looking for some more projects. If anyone has any land they like planted, we'll be there. So most of our plantings, like Mike said, are larger planting areas where we're going to create new forests. Some are windbreak, some are riparian plantings. But the larger forest plantings do qualify for a larger amount of funding than the smaller plantings do. We are also running tree sales, similar to Gray Sauble. Again, thanks to COVID, we're working on how we're going to run an individual tree sale that's not a pre-order program. Very challenging to do in these times. I think everyone can relate to that. Our funding partners are a little bit different than Mike. I don't have quite the same opportunities, but I do have to say I do get funding from Bruce Power. They've been very supportive of our program, and I have to give a shout out to them for that. I also want to throw in something a little bit different that we offer that's not tree planting, but we do offer tree marking services to try to assist landowners in doing the right thing when it is time to manage those forests that they have. And people that are interested in proper management may also want to enter the Managed Forest Tax Incentive Program, which we're happy to assist landowners in completing their application for that program. The idea of that one is to get people who have a forest and they're not even really sure what to do with it, to engage with the professional, to get the advice that they need so the forests are managed properly into the future. And in return, you can save up to 75% of your taxes on that forested portion. So that's turned out to be a really great program to give us a chance to speak with landowners that normally wouldn't have contacted us. If you want anything about our authority or our tree planting programs, because you're all online now, I know that you can go onto our website in the future and all of our information is hopefully up to date. We've been working really hard at improving our website, and I do know our tree planting forms are updated. Our tree sale information isn't there yet because I don't have it figured out yet. And that's it for me. Thank you.
No, there is one last question, Donna or Mike, whoever feels like chiming in. The question we had was, are the conservation authorities involved? Are they involved in planting hedgerows in agricultural areas to prevent erosion? Are there grants for this, or are you involved in any way?
Yes, I believe both CAs have funding available for those plantings, and we are both interested in completing those plantings.
Oh, that's great to hear. That's a frequent flyer topic in the climate action team conversations is hedgerows and on farms. There is a bonus question that just popped up. Does the Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority work with Bruce County with forest management, or do they have their own people for that?
Bruce County does have their own person for that, and work that can't be done by their staff is contracted out to consultants.
Thanks. You're welcome. Do you want to introduce
Great. Yeah,
Julie?
thanks very much. Okay, so, and Lee talked earlier about trees that can give food. Some people call them edible trees. And Julie Ann Lamberts is going to talk about trees that give food. Welcome, Julianne.
Hi everyone, I'm Julie Lamberts, or Julie Ann Lamberts. A lot of people ask me which I prefer, and it really doesn't matter. Anyway, I run the small business called Rooted by the Bluffs out of Lake Charles. By the Bluffs is a permaculture farm that encompasses a plant nursery and a mixed fruit and nut orchard in development. So our health is directly tied to the health of the environment, and as individuals, a simple action we can take to assist with reducing carbon in the atmosphere is to, of course, just plant a tree. The beautiful thing about this is that every time we plant a tree, we're not only contributing to healing the land, but it also gives us the opportunity to grow our own food as well. So when it comes to trees that provide food, you might instantaneously think about apple trees or fruit trees, cherries, plums, peaches. These are great opportunities to contribute a substantial amount of delicious food, but they do require lots of love in order to keep them healthy and productive. And regular monitoring for pests and disease and proper pruning or branch training is important. The healthier our trees are, the more stress they can withstand. You know, as we all know, with we get drought in the summer once in a while. So trees that are healthy can bounce back more quickly after these sort of stressful conditions. And another really important key reason for keeping your fruit trees healthy is to prevent them from being a host for pests and disease, which can spread. But there are lots of ways to make fruit tree care easier to manage over time. One example would be to emulate the patterns of healthy habitats around your fruit trees. And this also can apply to more than fruit trees. But beyond the fruits that I've mentioned, there are also lots of native understory trees and shrubs that produce fruit in the form of edible berries. So some of these include a variety of service berries, there's nanny berries, buffalo berries, and even blueberries are a native plant that provides fruit. So often these are also, of course, favored by birds. So you're not only feeding yourself, but also the surrounding wildlife. We can also grow a variety of nut trees here. So nut trees generally are not as popular as fruit trees, likely because of their large sizes and the length of time it can take for some of them to come into production. But planting trees is often all about planting for the future generations anyways, so why not include some nut trees? One of my absolute favorite nut trees is the shagbark hickory. And at the beginning of their life, they put most of their energy into a long taproot that goes into the ground before energy into growing their height. And they produce an amazing nut with a very buttery flavor. They have a shell that's easy to crack. The downfall is it can take 8 to 10 years before these trees produce nuts. But promise you, it is so worth the wait. And in addition, they can also provide amazing shade and an incredible strong wood at the end of their lives. There's many other nut trees that we can grow. There's, of course, the black walnut, butternut. They tend to have nuts with really thick shells that can be difficult to crack. And then we also have native species that can be cross-pollinated with non-native species to provide hybridized trees that have resistance to specific diseases. So some of these are, for example, the native butternut tree can be crossed with the Japanese heartnut tree. There's also crosses between hazelnuts. And hazelnuts are a great tree to grow if you want to grow nuts, because it's actually not a tree, it's actually a multi-stemmed spreading shrub. And it can give you nuts in a couple of years. So beyond that, my last thing I want to mention is just that trees can provide more than fruit and nuts. They can provide us with edible young leaves, needles, flowers, and of course, like I mentioned, the famous maple sugar sap that feeds our sweet tooth. So really the options are endless.
Thank you, Julie.
And trees are remarkable. It's our garden, and I just want to thank you for this opportunity to tell you more.
Julie is in Lake Charles, Ontario, which is close to Wyerton, between Wyerton and Big Bay, and runs Rooted by the Bluffs. So I'll yield my time to Meg Dean, Neighbor Woods North, and Leslie Lewis from Tree Trust. We'll go with Meg Dean, and then we'll go with Leslie Lewis and the Tree Trust. And then we'll finish off with Victoria Serda with Saw Green for the Environment. All three of these places have things going on this spring.
Unmute. Sorry.
Hey, there you are. Good.
Yes. Neighbor Woods North in Owen Sound. And mostly we're not known for tree planting at the hospital. But we have always talked about branching out, and there was really no pun intended there. And the other things we want to do is really advocate for Owen Sound to become and remain a very treed area. I think it's something like 60% of the trees on municipal land are ash trees. So we worry about that. We don't right now in Owen Sound have a big ash borer problem, but it's always possible. And so one of the things that we're working on is having Owen Sound become a recognized tree city of the world, which is a program by the Urban Forestry Organization, and it was put together by I was going to say who out of the UN, because that's what you hear all the time these days. But it's actually another department in the UN, and basically it's a program that a city has to meet certain standards with their trees and caring for the trees and maintaining the trees. And once they meet these 5 standards, then they get recognized internationally as a tree city of the world, and there are benefits to them, both in just marketing for one thing, because you are recognized as a one of the world leaders in trees. So we're really pushing that with the city council this spring.
That's a Tree City of the World. I imagine people can Google that and find out more about it.
Yeah, it is just treecitiesoftheworld.org.
It was actually mentioned. It was talked about yesterday by Lloyd at the discussion about the official plan. So it was introduced to the discussion at the city, which was very good.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Meg.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Meg. Go ahead, Leslie Lewis in Meaford.
Okay. I am a member of Transition Meaford. I heard about the tree trust actually through Betty's first tree. We were there to watch it being pruned by the arborist. We're very early here, and actually somebody from Thornbury, who I think Betty you would know, has moved to Meaford and is also interested in this. We're just starting to work together with him, and we have been working with the Beautiful Joe Park in Meaford, where they have a sycamore tree that goes back over 100 years and is actually mentioned in the Beautiful Joe story. So we brought Tobias to come and have a look at it, and he says it would be a great candidate. So right now we're in the process of trying to figure out how we should establish in Meaford as a tree trust, and then that would be our first tree. The Beautiful Joe people are very keen on having their tree be one of the first, or be the first here. We've also been in touch. I've been in touch with somebody in the municipality who, because Tobias has said that he has seen a lot of really beautiful trees in our cemetery. So the next thing will be to move from Beautiful Joe Park's sycamore tree into the cemetery and see which trees we can identify there. Meanwhile, we have to raise the funds to be able to go ahead to do it, but it's actually fairly reasonable so far from what I've seen from the quotes that Tobias has mentioned. So it shouldn't be too difficult, and I'm really hoping that we will get the same kind of community enthusiasm as Betty mentioned is existing in Thornbury.
Yeah, that's excellent. And thank you, Leslie, from Meaford over to Wyerton. And Victoria, I think you've got 1 or 2 projects on the go as usual.
Hello, everyone. It's nice to see a bunch of friends on here that I've worked with over the years. So I'm with the Bogatawatt Alliance and Saw Green for the Environment and the Climate Reality Project Canada. But with Saw Green, my good friend Tracy is on here, and she knows a lot more about what's going on because of the pandemic and because I recently moved. So I don't know if Tracy, if you would rather talk about that, or I can kind of describe what you're working on if you'd rather not.
Okay, we'll start with Victoria with Bogatawatt and then move to Tracy Saw Green. Go ahead, okay. Victoria.
Okay, well, I'll give a little background. So Saw Green for the Environment started in 2009 in Saugeen Shores, and it grew out of the an environment committee of the town when I was a municipal councillor, and Tracy was one of the people on that committee, and we formed Saw Green in order to implement the recommendations to the council. So we've done a huge amount over the years of tree planting in Saugeen Shores and in the region. one of the things that we developed was the Tall Tree Initiative, which is a tree sale that can be run by people in other municipalities around the area or other neighborhoods or in First Nations or anywhere that people would like to be able to do a tree sale partnership. So that's one of the things that we were able to keep going through the pandemic is to be able to run that tree sale and offer discounted trees to the public in partnership with JD Everest and the municipality. There's also some public park and along roadways kinds of plantings that we do. So Tracy, would you like to take it from there?
Okay, Victoria. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, good. This is my first time at this, so give me a sec to get used to it. We do a lot of tree planting in Saugeen Shores. I have worked tirelessly with Victoria for over 10 years and loved every minute of it and continued to do so. And I'm going to speak basically on what our tree programs are for this year, because that's the absolute what you need to know. So we've got a few things. One of them is the tree sale for Saugeen Shores residents, which we have been doing for over 10 years. And that's a partnership with the municipality, with our sponsor, Bruce Power, as well as with Everest Trees, as well as with Youth Group. Now, this is a tree sale that is for big trees, not some seedlings. And we usually sell 200 to 300 every year. And it's really good because we have a lot of development in this area. And we really need to get trees into residents' properties as fast as we can for shade and all the reasons that most of you know. So that's one of the big things. And we managed to do it in 2020 through COVID, and we will be doing it again in 2021. So keep an eye out for that. It'll be in the local Saugeen Shores calendar. I believe it's already in there for this year. We're also doing roadway. We've done concessions before, and right now we're working on Bruce Road 25 as they're doing the reconstruction. We're working to replant a lot of the trees that they've taken down in doing that. And this will be large trees. So we partner with the town of Saugeen Shores in that also. Most of our things are with municipal partners and funding from many sources. It could be grant writing, could be TD, Green Street, could be corporate sponsorship, could be private citizens. We have lots of different ways that we have got money all through these years. Another one is parks. So there's a new park being done at Gobles Grove Beach down here in Port Elgin, John Kyle's Parkette. And we will be working with the Beachers Association and the parks manager here to get some different species, not species so much as just some shade for people and different types of making sure the grasses and things that they're putting in next to the beach and the lake is proper. And also, lastly, for this year, we're doing a public walkway, which is between Acton Drive and Fenton Drive in Port Elgin. And we'll be putting in, hopefully, trees there, quite a few, and bushes. And our partners are not only the local residents there, but they're also the town again, and our volunteers ourselves, which we do a lot of our own planting. We do all our own organizing. My husband is very good at organizing, so he takes care of that for us. And we will be working in partnership with the Tall Tree Initiative in Kincardine, with the Penetangular Watershed and Crystal again this year. And I'm so happy that that program is going again this year. And that is based off our tree sale in Saugeen Shores. It's a really good one also. So it can be done, our tree sale, in any other community. It's just a matter of will and finding a tree champion. Thank you so much for letting me speak today.
Nice. And maybe a question for Victoria and or Tracy. Why are there so many tree initiatives going on this year? Why is everyone talking about trees?
Well, I'll answer if you want, Victoria. I'm always glad there's talking about trees. We've planted over 10,000 trees in this local area over the years, in the last 11 years. And the more they talk about it,
the better for the whole environment and the whole world. As we all know, it's the #1 thing to do for all of us. So let's just keep it up, and thanks for hosting this to keep that up.
I have to say, I do think we got an awful lot more volunteers this past fall in planting than we have before, and we were wondering if COVID and the fact that when you volunteer now, being outside is really nice. So we were wondering if that had something to do with it. We had from everybody from 18 months to 80 years out there.
Nice. Well, I'll follow up as well, because I heard I was in earlier preparing for this today. I talked to Nature Conservancy Canada, Esme, and she directed me to Caitlin, and they said that they're planting, Nature Conservancy Canada are planting 20,000 native trees around the Maitland River near Goderich. So that's big, and it's local. Also, just a small farm, anecdotally, Stone Grove Farm near Oxenden, 90 trees. It's just a husband and wife and a family just putting 90 trees on their farm just for carbon, just to help for their soul, I suppose, and for the carbon footprint, and because it's, I mean, I don't have to tell everyone in this forum why. Also, one thing to keep that's coming down the pipe is Grey Bruce Sustainability Network is also looking at putting on nature-based solutions workshops in conjunction with the Outdoor Ed Center up in Oliphant. So this summer could be full if, I think it's the same grant that Bagatawad is waiting for, and maybe a couple of others, is to see if we can put on some nature-based solutions workshops, and one of which, of course, nature-based solutions, as you all know, is sucking carbon out of the air with trees and with healthy soil and wetlands. So those are 3 more initiatives that came in by email. That concludes for me. I just wanted to issue everyone here a challenge, and then I'll pass the floor over to Iwakam. I was gonna, since we have 65 people in the same spot, I was gonna just challenge you all to do what Bob says, plant a tree in your own, plant some maples, or do what Crystal says and volunteer to plant with your watershed group, or do what the CAs are looking for. They're looking for land for you. Or do what Leslie and Betty are doing, and inspire people by starting a tree trust in your neighborhood. So I really appreciate the speakers, and Iwakam, you can tie up the loose ends of what we forgot to do today. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think one thing that is so exciting about trees, that trees are actually a pretty low-hanging fruit, even without fruits, in sequestering carbon and getting rid of greenhouse gases, sucking them up. So I think it's fantastic, and I think people really notice it now and do what we can do, which is fairly easy. Lee, you thought of doing a survey monkey. Do you still want to do that?
Yeah, what I'll do is I'll post it in the link, in the chat in the next minute. And then if you guys want to click on that and vote for your favorite issues that we'll be meeting on every 3rd Thursday of the month with Climate Action Grey Bruce. I'll get that link in there as soon as possible, but don't worry, if you're on our mailing list, you'll also get that option to vote on your topics for the 3rd Thursdays. And maybe Wacom, you can tell about the next gathering as well.
Yeah, so the next gathering is on Thursday, February the 18th. And we are planning to have a schedule for the whole year of 2021. We are still working on topics and issues and speakers. But right now the plan is to talk about community gardens next time in February, which is, as I said, February the 18th. So I guess, Lee, that we still kind of invite ideas about speakers and topics on community gardens, right? So if somebody has an idea or wants to share something, we have some ideas already, and we'll share them with you.
Yeah, we have potentially a couple of experts who just want to proliferate Grey Bruce with community gardens. So especially important, and timing-wise, it's important to talk about that sort of stuff in February. So February 18th at 7 o'clock. We were going to switch it back to 7 o'clock from now on, right?
Oh yes, that's important. 7 o'clock, not 7:30. That was just an exemption this time. We hope to see you next month on the 18th, and let's sequester as much carbon as we can, and yeah, and enjoy the winter and enjoy the snow. Thanks very much. Thanks to everybody. Thanks to the speakers. It takes quite a lot of effort to come together on an evening like this.
Yeah, and thank you, welcome. And we're definitely trying to make this group a little bit more inclusive. So anyone in Gray and Bruce, or Neoshiniming or Saugeen, anywhere between Goderich and Collingwood, you're all invited back on Thursdays of every month.